Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, good morning and welcome, Sidelines. It is a beautiful day. What a wild weekend of college football we had. Rob Browne here with you live from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. They're open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Service department on Saturdays, 7 to 12:30 p.m. They will deliver anywhere, over 700 used cars, trucks, and SUVs. Check them out on the web, redriverfordtoyota.com. You'll love working with these people. They'll actually work with you and for you. They'll make the extra effort. All right, Buddy Martin's going to lead off with us this morning. GatorBaitMedia.com, longtime veteran sports writer. We love having him on. Saturday Roundtable. Had a wild Saturday, and we're going to have Buddy on here, followed by Doug Dean down in Birmingham, AU Dose, and Tommy Kane over in Atlanta, talking some ACC, SEC college football. So be with you for the next 2 hours. We've got a lot to talk about, so I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to get straight to it. We're going to start talking with Buddy, and Jimmy's joining us right now momentarily. But Buddy, your thoughts on this past weekend? There was some ugly football played, and there was some good football played. Let's start down in the swamp. Gators get the win, but it wasn't easy.
Well, good morning to you, Rob, and you and Audrey. And I love it when I can see Jimmy's face again. That'd be great. I always love talking ball with you guys. Yeah, crazy doesn't begin to define it. A lot of different places around the country, stuff going on. This wild, wacky, wonderful world of college football. And the swamp was so different. It was not a great night for Gator fans who hoped their team would show up and show out, that Anthony Richardson would – a reformed Anthony Richardson would come forward and get his game back, and that didn't happen. And all I can say to you was, at the end of the day, at the end of the night, when it got down to the last 50 seconds, as South Florida, a 24.5 underdog, was driving down the field, which looked to be most assuredly, if not a tying field goal, maybe a winning touchdown. And I don't know, at this point in time, they were gashing Florida's defense pretty good, despite some terrific performances by Jervon Dexter and others in there, and Big Daz Watson, the big 400-pound guy, the nose tackle, and a few others. This looks like it was going to be a fatalistic ending for the Florida Gators in just their third game of the year. They cannot afford to lose and never have lost to South Florida and teams like that. And that would, if not drive a nail in the coffin, not that they would fire Billy Napier, certainly go on a downward trajectory. And then something happened, and you've seen this at Auburn, I've seen it at Auburn, I've seen it at Baton Rouge, I've seen it other places. This time it was swamp magic. Stuff happens, and stuff happened in the last 50 seconds that helped Florida dodge the bullet.
Yeah, and I watched so much football over the weekend. I was down in Auburn for the embarrassment. I love the picture you sent of the convoy of Amish buggies coming down. And as several of my friends have said, well, they brought a 55-gallon drum of whoop bars with them. I'm going to tell you one thing. There's a myth that the SEC is so much better than other conferences because it's based on a lot of these bowl games and everything. I mean, I think it's the best conference, but Auburn is now 0-2 all time in their 130-year history in the regular season against Big Ten competition. And I'm going to tell you what, Penn State just wiped the field.
I watched that game.
It was an embarrassment. And I'm going to tell you, it was a great atmosphere, but Auburn and Florida, very similar. They're trying to dig their way out. But man, there's some issues both teams have. Florida, how many yards did South Florida gain? 265 on the ground.
Yeah, that's 402 yards overall.
Yeah,
286 on the ground. So, look, it doesn't take much. There's a very thin margin on these games. And when you got a guy like Ventrell Miller not playing, not only is he not making the calls at linebacker, a fifth-year player who knows all about the schemes, who's innately knows the defense, knows where to go, and lines everybody else up, and is the spiritual leader of the defense. When he's not in the game, massive drop off. My friend and colleague Chris Storing pointed out last week, even at practices this spring, when Miller had classes and couldn't come to perform, even in practice, the defense fell off when Ventrell wasn't there. So it's a huge deal. And so guys were playing hard. I mean, Brenton Cox played his butt off. He had maybe his career game. They tried hard. Big old Des Watson stuck it in there and really wound up being the reason for the bad snap. People forget there are things that happen that just aren't accident. When you get a big 400-pound guy pounding on your center and pounding on the middle of your line, it has residual impact. And if you watch the tape in the film, you'll see the center, his name was Cecil, I believe, he snaps immediately go to his right to stop Dez. And as one of the analysts said, he was a former center, when you do that, you tend to be off on your snap. Well, for those that didn't see the game, what happened, number one, is they were going in. They had momentum. I think the second 5. And the center snapped the ball over the head of the quarterback, Bohannon, and they lost 20 yards. Now they're looking at third and gazillion. They can't run it in. They try to. They didn't convert the third down, and all they had left was a field goal, hopefully to tie the game. And by the way, all props to the South Florida Bulls. They played great. And they weren't a great team, although Billy Napier said to me they were a high-quality team. I take his word for it. The fact is they got no business almost beating Florida, and they almost did. And then the really second fatal mistake was the center snapped the ball. It was not a great snap, but it was catchable, and the holder dropped it and tried to get it propped up, and the kicker tried to get it airborne and missed, and Florida won. That's what we call swamp magic.
Yeah, and it was. And Anthony Richardson's development as a quarterback, it's going to take a while. And everybody gets so excited about what someone does in the first game, and that game against Utah was neat. I don't know how good the Pac-12 is. I mean, again, I think Tommy Tuberville said it years ago. He's dead right. Wait till about the 5th week before you actually issue football rankings. But here it is. Florida's 2-1. That one game against Kentucky looked really dominant there late in the game. But again, similar to a lot of other teams, Florida's got to get more offensive and defensive linemen. It all starts up front.
Well, you aren't going to get it now. It's too late, but you got to coach them up. And Florida got out-coached in that game by Mark Stoops. All props to him. He had a great scheme. And Franz Beard wrote a really good column this morning in Gatorade, if I might just mention. If you're a Gator fan, you need to get it. GatorbaitMedia.com. And he talked about the movie called Trouble with the Curve, a baseball movie with Clint Eastwood. And he said that movie now for Florida is Trouble with the Zone. The textbook on that is drop as many as you can and try to confuse Anthony Richardson, who's only made 3 starts this year. He's young in a new system. I'm not making excuses for him. He didn't play well, and he owned it. And everybody's going to do the same thing. This is not new, Rob. I've told you this. I saw this in 1969 at Auburn. I believe Hal Herring was there. Anyway, they dropped 9 against John Reeves, a great-looking prospect, just like Anthony Richardson, big arm. And he went to the loveliest villages on the plains. They picked his pocket 9 times, a national record for interceptions. So this is not unusual. Got a big arm, a guy can throw it around. What do? You flood his zones and you try to make him confused. And
that was a great defense put together by Brother Oliver in that game in '69. And I think you are so on point, buddy, when you talk about Anthony Richardson. You're not making excuses. You're being real about this. It takes a while to learn. When you're a new quarterback, everything's going fast. When you're a new defensive back, everything's going fast. When you start to understand what's going on, this is an overused term, but it's dead right. It slows everything down, and it's just going to take a while. And you got the pressure that comes with being Florida's quarterback. I mean, that's just part of it. I mean, you get over that. The more he plays, the better. Repetition, It's true. Repetition's the mother of all skill. So, I think, buddy, looking at college football right now, there are a lot of schools that are struggling on the offensive line. I can't remember seeing so many different schools with really poor offensive line play. So if you got a mobile quarterback, that does nothing but help you, because and a lot of times they are going to have to run for their football lives out there.
Well, you know what? Florida's running game was very good. The offensive line played really good, and that's what kept them in the game. Anthony was had a bid 10 for 18, 112 yards passing. Did not run the ball effectively, but the guys who did, their running backs and the offensive line led by Osiris Torrance, he played a marvelous game, and that offensive line made it possible. You got a guy like Trevor Etienne coming in the game later on, and going up the middle, 4 straight times to score the go-ahead touchdown, a guy that nobody expected to do much. Their running backs are playing really, really well. And so the running game is really what's saving them. And Anthony talked about it Saturday night. Everybody knows you let them run the ball until they can't, or until Anthony finds his rhythm. When he finds his rhythm, both as a runner and a passer, and Franz wrote about this, he's lost his confidence. As I wrote my column Saturday night, he's still looking for his confidence in the long grass of Steve Spurrier Field, trying to find it. And he will. He's got talent, and he's not hurt. He's dinged up like a lot of players are. So the defense is playing good at times. I got a lot of work to do. The running game is doing well. Offensive line has been the best thing about this team, and their wide receivers need to step it up a little bit. So we'll see. I got to go to Knoxville this weekend, and there's no swamp magic in Knoxville.
No, and it's been a while. What, Jimmy, 15 of the last 16 up there. It's been a terrible streak for Tennessee, and Florida hadn't had the best teams in that time, but Tennessee's been just and since Phil Fulmer left, they've been just wondering. They with the Alabama 15 straight, Florida 15 of the last 16. So I don't know, Jimmy. Got some questions for Buddy about this matchup coming up this weekend in Knoxville. Tennessee moving up toward the top 10.
Well, I wanted to go back to the South Florida game, Buddy. I got to tell you, I was really impressed with how Jeff Scott had his team ready to play.
Yeah.
I felt terrible for him at the end. Mm-hmm. They just I doubt there's a whole lot of people leaving Florida Field Saturday night that felt, we really deserve to win this game. The Florida crowd came through big.
They did.
And when you get that crowd behind you, man, they know this team's a work in progress, and they know they need all the help they can get. And they knew when to come through and make as much noise as possible. But I could not believe that snap when I saw it. I just went, here you are from having a great chance to win the game, now to just, trying to make the field goal as makeable as possible, and it just doesn't work out. But, Buddy, I got to tell you, I'm starting to have some concerns about Richardson, though, as far as just being able to read the defenses and being able to make that decision quickly, and not having any uncertainty. Even if you're not 100% sure what your read is, you got to make your decision one way or the other and then go with it. You can't be hesitant. And he's still in that mode. And I know it's going to be, it's going to be a work in progress. I mean, that is the best description I can come up with. And the fans are a lot less patient about that type of thing than the coaching staff that have been in this business a long time. And they've seen a lot of different players that go through that stage. But this is going to be a fascinating game Saturday to see how Richardson responds to that environment in Knoxville, because Tennessee, they are playing with a lot of confidence. They have one of the best offenses in the country. Now that defense, especially in the secondary, is vulnerable, but I think they're going to do some things, that Tennessee coaching staff, to try to confuse Richardson, change some alignments, and show him some stuff maybe that they haven't shown other opponents so far. And along with that crowd, try to confuse him.
Buddy, I think
you're right, Jimmy. You're right. You're right on what you said. Go ahead.
I mean, what along those lines about Anthony Richardson, what, you go back to where Dan Mullen did not play him. He always went with Emory Jones. Maybe he saw something that concerned him. I mean, he's there in practice every day, but Anthony Richardson, I think, does have a very high ceiling, but Tennessee doesn't have necessarily a great defense. They're good enough, but this is his first time to go on the road in a real, true hostile environment.
Yeah, I mean, he played in Jacksonville last year, obviously, and that's not a home crowd, but it's not a road crowd, and there's no doubt about it. And you have to know that, look, Billy Napier played the position. He knows it. He knows what he's up against. It's like you got a guy on the bench who hit 20 home runs and who's used to hit 330s, now hitting 250 or 240. When do you make a change? There is no change to make because Jack Miller's still hurt. He's the guy. Now, all Anthony has to do is not turn the ball over, which he did again, 2 picks, 2 straight games, which you're right, Joey, is concerned. Use his legs. Some people think he might have a sore knee or something, which is why he's not running. Do not be reticent. Make a choice. And the sad part about it was he wasn't on the goal line. He made a call, did the audible, and threw the ball up the back shoulder throw to his receiver who he thought would be able to get it. Shorter, and of course it was picked. And almost, by the way, back at pick 6, it was Anthony Richardson who made the game-saving tackle on that. So,
buddy, can you hold those thoughts real quick? We're going to take a break and come back, and I want you to pick back up on that because that game-saving tackle is going to be big in the long run. More sidelines after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back with Jimmy Hodge and Buddy Martin, GatorbaitMedia.com. And Buddy, by the way, you said earlier in the show, if I could say this, you are always welcome to plug GatorbaitMedia.com. That's what Sidelines is for. We help you, you help us. We are a team. So say it is. It's kind of like the old Johnny Carson show. Remember, people would get out there and say, shameless plug, I'll be at the Sands in Las Vegas Thursday through Saturday night. But you and Franz Beard and Ben Troop absolutely bring the A game every single time you're on Sidelines. But you were talking about that game-saving tackle at the end of the game Saturday night, and we had to go to a break, but continue because this is important.
Well, I mean, thank you for the opportunity to be on and tell people. I'm really proud of the work we're doing on GatorbaitMedia.com, and there's lots of big things about to happen to us. We're so excited and happy about the expansion program, new people we brought on board, stuff we're doing. And we're a work in progress, just like the offense of Florida, and what we're trying to do. But we do feel like we're going to give you something nobody else will, including the show on Monday through Thursday at 9:00. On the Buddy Martin show on Facebook Live. And then on Sunday, our new Orange and Blue Blood show, where Ben Troop, we have a church in Ben of the Orange and Blue Bloods, and Ben preaches there every Sunday morning. And then we have Lauren Matthews, our coach, and we talk ball, we break it down, and fans have really gravitated to that Sunday morning show. So a lot of good things happening. Thank you for that. And back now to Richardson. You got to stay with this guy. He's too talented. And I heard Tom Luganville say last week on Five Bomb Show, he is the most talented quarterback in college football. Now, that could be a curse too. You got to get him in the game. Billy's coaching him hard. Anthony's trying hard, and one day it will click. But right now they're struggling, and they could be in trouble in Knoxville. I just looked up the lines, 8.5. The Vols were favored. Look, Tennessee is not that good. Hendon Hooker's got an opportunity to have a great year. But let me just tell you something. The secondary of Florida, although the front seven struggles, the secondary is really talented. So be careful, Hendon Hooker. You get your pocket picked, as Bohannon did on Saturday night. And so that's what they got to rely on. Funny thing about it is all saying here, everything said, Jimmy and Rob, Florida has to win on defense and running. That just doesn't sound right, does it?
No, it does sound strange. And you're going on the road. The one thing, defense travels. That's true. And it happens. It's always going to be that way. But that's going to be a very hostile atmosphere Saturday. And game days coming to town. Again, Tennessee's got to be careful. And we're going to have Mark Ham on later in the show, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report from Knoxville. They got to be careful not to get too excited and too comfortable, being that they're going to be on their home field. Because I remember a few years ago when the Gators went up to Knoxville, Jimmy and Buddy and Will Muschamp had a very poor Florida team, and they got the win, 9-7 or something like that. It was a terrible. The Gators, again, 15 of the last 16 over Tennessee. Not always with better teams. They've come away with the victory. I think, this is going to be one of those games we're going to break down throughout the week, but it's why we love college football. Jimmy, I know you got some more questions for Buddy Martin of the BuddyMartinShow.com.
Well, the first thing I wanted to do, and I just came up with the question in the last 10 seconds. So you're just concluded a conversation with Buddy. The most memorable game for me with Florida, Tennessee was the 2000 game when Florida drove down the field, and at the end of the game, I forgot who caught the touchdown pass with 5 seconds left, but it was kind of a hook pattern in the end zone. And as soon as he caught the ball, a Tennessee player knocked it out of his hands, and the ruling was touchdown. And it turned out that the official that made the call, I think it was Al Matthews, was a former Vanderbilt player, and it was really, really close. Let's just put it this way. Had that pass been thrown in the middle of the field, it's an incomplete pass. But in the end zone, it made it a whole different animal, and it was before replay. So after the game, Al Ford was the referee in that game, and they asked Al, did you check with Matthews? And he goes, well, absolutely. I asked him, are you absolutely sure about this call? He said, yeah. And Al said, I wasn't about to change it. I mean, it was and they did a documentary. I don't know if you remember this, but when the existence of the Sports South Network was going on in that period in the early 2000s. I think it was based out of Atlanta. They did a documentary on SEC officials, and that game was one of the games being covered. And as the officials were leaving the stadium in their van, there were a couple ladies there giving them the one finger salute, and they were talking about after the game that sometimes you go to the hotel and you can go back in your officiating uniform, but then sometimes there are games that you want to just change into your plain clothes before you leave.
Yeah.
But that was a really memorable game. But yeah, and I'll exit with this, Buddy. And talking to you, I really wanted to see what you thought about this observation in regard to Richardson. In my mind, I don't think I've ever seen as athletically gifted and talented a quarterback prospect that is as raw as he is. I was just curious what your thought would be on that description.
Well, let me say, first of all, I was at that game, and I thought I did think it was incompletion in Knoxville that night, and that was the naked eye. And now today you can look at it 15 times on replay, and there are going to be questionable calls that one went Florida's way. And the next year, unfortunately, the scales of justice tipped the other way after 9/11 moved the Florida-Tennessee game.
Oh, yeah.
And they played the game at the end of the year, and Florida lost a 2-point game, and Spurrier cost Spurrier a possible national championship. And so those things have a way of evening out somehow. But anyway, yeah. So back to your question, raw talent. Yeah, well, there's no question he has a long way to go. But look, in journalism and writing and in football, I'm a sucker for talent. You give me talent, I'll take some of the foibles. I'll take some of the rawness. I've my entire life, if I've done nothing else, maybe I can't write worth a flip or whatever, but I've found talented people. My job to get them to their best ability to do the best work they can, and sometimes it's a long process. I can't tell you the wonderful talent I've had a chance to work with, including Mike Lupica and Rick Riley, and they were green and raw just like Anthony Richardson. Okay, so I'm seeing a guy like Anthony. I'm a guy that says, "Give me the raw talent. I'll figure a way to make him effective." That's my job as a coach or as an editor, make him better. I trust Billy Napier. I think he's done, despite the results, a really, really good job of coaching him. He's not going for the cheap, easy way. He's going for the long haul. That means there will be a crucible. Everybody's had to go through a crucible in life, knows it takes a lot to hang in there to get to the other side. But if you can, and if you do, great things can happen. Maybe this won't be the year. Maybe there'll be a 7-5 team. There's nothing disgraceful about that. But they got their hands full Saturday night, and pretty much they got their hands full most of the way, except for maybe Eastern Washington. Even Vanderbilt might give them trouble. So but they remember, as my colleague Carlton Reeve showed, they are 2-1. They're 2-1. I don't care how ugly it might look. They're 2-1. On the table still, it's a 9-win season, 8-win, even 7-win. It's not a disaster. It's going to require patient coaching, and it's going to require the young man growing up. And Ben Troop said it yesterday. His coaches told him when he was going through the stage, he said, "Look, I can just coach you so far. Then you have to own it, and you have to do it." And we're getting close to that point where Anthony is going to have to produce.
Well, and that goes along the line of what Audrey always says, I can't care more than you care. And you could scream and holler. That fire's ultimately got to burn from within. I totally agree with you. And you look back at all these games, and right now the Gators are 2-1, and people are worried about – and all fan bases are worried. But your record, if you get the win, you're 3-1. That maybe they're not all great-looking wins. But if you're getting better as a team, that's what a fan base can hang their hat on. But if they feel like you're just a fire out of control and there's no hope of stopping the descent, it gets the fan base, very concerned. And again, Tennessee, they went on the road, got the win at Pitt. At the time, I don't care what Pitt's record is. At the time they played that game, that was a big matchup. It was a national TV. It was a spotlight game. This one for Anthony Richardson, it's his first time again on the road, and the critics are just waiting for the other shoe to drop, buddy. You know that, Jimmy, you know it. And that's the thing he's got to be able to handle. But I like his success. I like his future success with Billy Napier as his head coach, because I believe he knows how to handle him. You're exactly right. Someone that can't, that quarterback goes into free fall.
Jimmy, and I'll Rob, you too. Let me give you these teams and say, all right, you're going to own this team for the rest of the year. All right. This will be your team. AP's top 10. I'm going to throw out Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. All right. Top 3. Now I'm going to name off these teams, and you guys tell me Florida or this team would you take. All right. Here we go. Michigan, Clemson, Oklahoma, Southern Cal, Kentucky, Oklahoma State, Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina State, Utah, Penn State, Oregon, Ole Miss, Baylor, Washington, BYU, any of those teams over the number 20 team, Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I'd take Michigan, but I think Georgia's better than they were last year.
No, well, Georgia, we're not talking about. Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State are thrown out.
Yeah,
you can't have any of those. You can have any one of those other teams I mentioned. You got to pick one or Florida.
I like Michigan and Penn State just because of their quarterback situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Fair
think
enough.
they're really solid, and because of the conference they play in, I think those teams are only going to play 2 or 3 opponents that, if they're not laser focused, they're obviously going to get beat. Whereas with Florida, every week they're going to be facing an opponent that it can beat them and will beat them if they aren't at least on their B game, or they're certainly in danger of it. So I think those teams in the other conferences, like I said, that Western Division of the Big Ten, I think, is pretty weak. I think you've got a big advantage there. Whereas in the SEC, even though some of these teams have had shaky performances, the teams within the conference, they all know your stuff, though. They know your schemes. They know they know your signals. They know just pretty much everything. So it's much tougher. And when you have so many well-rounded and athletic teams that you see in the SEC, it's just a lot tougher. And that's why I would take Michigan and Penn State over Florida right now, just because. And also Penn State, I tell you what, I was impressed with their talent level. They got 2 freshman running backs that can play for anybody, and they got 3 quarterbacks that could start for probably 80% of the teams in Division I. So
Well,
I would go with those 2 teams.
But you hadn't seen Penn State play anybody yet, though. Come on.
Well,
I was there. I'm not sure who that was playing Penn State Saturday, but Jimmy.
Yeah, but all you could go on was the game last year. Everybody expected the very same thing, and a lot of the same players were still there. And I was just stunned at the confidence with which Penn State just came into the stadium with.
Oh, yeah.
And their coaches seemed to be really prepared. They looked really relaxed on the sideline. Their body language from the head coach on down was just day and night with what you saw at Auburn.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you what, man, Penn State's got some players. But here's a lesson, buddy, I think. I saw Penn State in that opener 2 weeks ago Thursday night against Purdue, and they had no business winning that game. But it just goes to show you, if you go out there every day and try to get better in practice, you never know when it's going to click. And I'm telling you what, Penn State Saturday, I mean, they look like a legitimate top 10 team. I was just stunned at what I was seeing, and they really had elite, young, talented players. Like I said, the 2 freshman running backs.
Jimmy,
they have the 5. I'll leave it there. But the 5-star freshman and Drew Alar, they're really good.
Yeah, buddy, I forgot the question you asked. Now, after
all right, I'm gonna give it to you right. No more time. I'll duck out of here. But I'm just saying, pick a team. And I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you like this. I'm gonna give you the SEC teams after the big 3. You tell me what's one of these SEC teams you want over Florida. Obviously, Kentucky, Arkansas, Tennessee, Ole Miss. Any of those teams over Florida, or all of them?
Right now, I would take Ole Miss. I would take Kentucky. They beat them. Mm-hmm. I would take Tennessee because that game is in Knoxville, and I think Hendon Hooker's more developed as a quarterback. And who was the other school?
Arkansas.
Yeah, same thing with Arkansas. Just because
you're taking all the 4 of those teams over Florida. Okay, I'm good with that.
I am right now.
No, it's okay. I get it, and I'm gonna give it to you, and I'm gonna remind you of it. Okay?
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not saying I know anything here, but let me just mention one more thing.
Yeah.
Penn State has got a pretty easy stretch, except for the times they got to play Michigan, Minnesota, and then Ohio State. Then come talk to me about Penn State. All right. No. I'm not a believer in Penn State. We'll see. They play in a pretty tough league. That's a tough run there. And, it's everybody. And then you get people hurt and things happen. This is only September, boys. It gets a lot rougher in November when the big boy football comes out and you're going to take on Alabama or Georgia or whatever, and then get banged up. And in boxing, that's where they had the bum of the month club where they fought somebody who was no good. The easy things are gone now. We'll see. And I don't know where Florida will go. We'll find out. I'm not saying they are, but how'd you like to be Jimbo Fisher today? And by the way, Florida's ranked ahead of him. He's 23rd. Florida's 20th in the AP poll.
Yeah, and along that line, the one team that I took, Ole Miss, their quarterback situation is still in play. I mean, Jackson Dart's probably going to be the guy, but I say that because along the line of scrimmage, Ole Miss can run the ball. Their defense, albeit they hadn't played great teams, has been really strong too. Look, buddy, we'll be back with you on the round table Saturday, back on regular schedule Saturday morning. But anyway, great stuff as always. Check him out, GatorbaitMedia.com, the Buddy Martin Show, Monday through Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern on Facebook. Thanks so much. We'll be right back with Doug Dean after this break. You bet.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with Jimmy Hodge in Chicago, Doug Dean in Birmingham. And Doug, you know, in the fourth quarter, I moved seats down there at Jordan-Hare Stadium from I had great seats, but I was in the sun burning at the stake with Dr. Waller May. I went down and sat over there in section 16 with Billy Roberts, who's on the show with us a lot, one of our team members from Atlanta. And you know who was sitting 2 seats over from me?
Don't tell me. Kim Kardashian.
No. Auburn. She drove to the Auburn game. She drove to the Auburn game. I don't know how, but she drove, and she was wearing a muumuu and house slippers. But anyway, and she was smoking a cigarette, and that's when they made her leave the game. But anyway, Saturday's game. Jimmy was just talking about he was impressed with Penn State, and I said, well, they hadn't played anybody yet. I'm kidding, but
amen to that.
It did not look. Jimmy and Buddy sent me a meme this morning. It was a picture of a bunch of Amish buggies in a long convoy. Said Penn State on their way to Auburn. And
yep, I saw that.
I didn't think the Amish were a tough and violent people, but man, did they take out a 55-gallon drum of whoop arse on the Auburn Tigers. And you know, where do you even start? It's kind of like after a tornado or something is just ripped through, and you go outside and you just start looking around going, where do I start? So Doug Dean, AU Dose in Birmingham, let's get started.
I'm reminded, good morning, Jimmy, Rob,
Hey,
Audrey, all the listening audience who can't wait to hear this. What do they call us, Rob? Barners?
Yeah. Auburn, AWBREN.
And I have embraced the bug moniker, just like Cow College, because we help put people on the moon and do high tech. That doesn't look like a cow college to me.
Not at all.
By the way, what's wrong with agriculture? I like to eat. But anyway, all joking aside, I woke up in the middle of the night in kind of a cold sweat. And, you know, it's funny how the brain synapses fire, or in my case, predicting an Auburn win, how they don't fire correctly for you sometimes. I had that one wrong. I think I was guilty of, what do psychiatrists call it? Confirmation bias, seeing what you want to see, right?
Yes.
And I drank the Mr. Potato Head, sorry, Coach Harsin, you got to have a little fun on here, Brian Harsin Kool-Aid, that we were going to have a a great and ferocious Auburn defense. I think we still can if they would just, understand how to set up and how to call a defense like Manny Diaz did. Wasn't even complicated. What do you do to disrupt this Auburn offense? Put the game entirely on TJ Finley's shoulders, and you saw what happened with that. And it didn't get a lot better except in spots. Frankly, our best plays in the game were broken plays. When you start seeing that from Finley and Ashford, loved it. Ashford's athleticism, he would be with the time to prepare and rep it all spring and summer and the right offense. Oddly enough, a Gus Malzahn offense circa 2013, Ashford would probably be hell on wheels, but that's not what we did. So at 3 a.m, I kept hearing the song from Hee Haw. You know it, Rob.
Yeah.
Gloom, despair, and agony on me. And it, deep, dark depression, excessive misery. What other adjectives do you want? That was as close as you get to coaching malpractice. I said it. I stand by it. That was coaching malpractice, how we set that game up, the in-game calling, the complete lack of imagination. Now, we were not going to beat that Penn State team.
No.
I think you can now certify that opinion. And I want to encourage Jimmy not to, in the name of being classy, which Jimmy Hodge always is. I mean that, Jimmy. Don't hold back. Tell it like it is, because I think people like Jimmy, who are true analysts, have earned the privilege to not hold back, since they're kind, reasonable, and classy to the Auburn Tigers week in and week out. But this is one of those weeks, Rob. I'm going to comment a little on what we saw Saturday, the X's and O's, the film room breakdown, but not a lot. You know why, Rob? Because I think it's over for Bryan Harsin. And I think the only thing that is left, and I realize we're in year 2, and the Pete Thamels of the world are already queuing up their typical anti-Auburn smear, that mean old Auburn with their redneck good old boys finally got Bryan Harsin stabbed in the back. That's not the narrative. If you want to see the narrative, read Skarbinski Saturday, read Dan Wolken in USA Today yesterday, who penned, and I couldn't agree more, Harsin is not going to make it, I'm paraphrasing on that, but quote, because it is a bad and boring football product. And my last comment, I'll let you guys react. See if you can guess what Penn State offensive play, a single play, made me want to pull my hair out and scream at Bryan Harsin and Eric Kiesau. Penn State offensive play.
I would say the reverse pass to the quarterback.
Yeah, the throwback. You really are on your game, Rob. You're approaching savant, not idiot, but savant status. And
Jimmy,
that was Steve Sarkisian-like play calling.
I'm telling you, and you know what it's not the most complicated play, but can you imagine if you had a real game plan, not this vanilla baked Idaho potato that you cool down and after the microwave, not even any butter or sour cream on it. That's what we got from Harsin and Kiesau. But if you run a series or two with Ashford, and they get very used to him mostly doing read option, some jet sweeps to our speed guys, and mixing a tight end pass or two in there, and then all of a sudden you do a throwback to Ashford, that would be hell on wheels. But instead we left the imaginative design and play calling and game planning to James Franklin and his coaching staff. And that was, by the way, besides a great Penn State team, they deserve accolades. I think they will make noise in the Big Ten. I don't know if they're good enough to beat Michigan and Ohio State, but I think it's going to be a game. Great QB. He's getting all he can out of that talent, and they outcoached the living hell out of this Bryan Harsin team. So the only question is, how do you want to choreograph the exit and timing for Bryan Harsin? Not yet.
Well, I'll say this, that the Auburn offense under Eric Kiesau and Bryan Harsin is a rotary phone in a world of iPhones. It is sad. And I mean, I was there, and when I moved from where we were sitting in section 105 at great seats on about the 40, we moved down in the fourth quarter, and believe me, it wasn't hard to pick your seat where you wanted. People had poured out of the stadium. somebody, was it you, Doug, or somebody said Auburn fans should come disguised, wearing aluminum foil so they can blend in with all the empty seats next Saturday, the 11 a.m. Auburn already after 4 games in timeout. I mean, playing the 11 a.m. game against Missouri, but you could sit wherever you wanted. But, I always like to look at the coaches on the sidelines and their families and everybody around, the body language. I mean, there were tons of recruits at that game.
You got 30 stud recruits in Jordan Hare, and you lay that egg.
Yeah, and it's just ridiculous. And I don't know. I believe there are 2 kinds of people in this world. I always say this. There are people that will sign off on every bad idea you've got because they want you to like them. They want you to like them, and they want to go to your lake house and fly on your plane and go golf at your country club or whatever. Then there are truth brokers. Hey, does this dress make me look fat? You betcha. You're really, really, you're really big. I'm a truth broker. That product for what Auburn spends on football and pays this coach, don't tell me be nice when the guy's getting $5 or $6 million. Just like with these kids getting NIL money, they are subject to whatever comes their way. Okay.
Yeah. And Rob, let me preemptively say to anyone who wants to push this narrative, well, I can't believe Auburn is firing a coach. He's only lost 1 game. No, it needs to be looked at in the context of 60th ranking in recruiting and no evidence of doing anything about it. A denial that NIL can and should be an integral strategy to procuring talent. And then the fact that we ended last year 5 losses. And so it really, the body of work should be viewed as 0-6 right now, because I don't count the first 2 games.
Yeah.
And that's what you're thinking about. And do you believe, once you believe you've got the wrong leader, you should not waste another minute. I don't care if they wait till the bye week. That's fine if that's just better optics. But I don't think you wait until you might announce that we're making a change after the season. But if Harsin wants to coach a year out, fine, because we don't really have an obvious, you're not going to put either of these coordinators as the interim head coach. I don't think.
Ugh.
They're Harsin's best friends.
Oh.
So, Jimmy, your thoughts on what you saw?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to get an AD in first before they can make a move, honestly. With an interim, it's already chaotic enough as it is, and all you're going to have speculation and so forth. I mean, it's clearly not a good situation to be in. I guess if you were looking at the positive side, you could be a Georgia Tech fan. I'm telling you what, I'm surprised that Collins is still there today. I mean, you talk about just brutal. I mean, there are guys running through holes 35, 40 yards untouched. I mean, but yeah, I also tend to look at the head coach on the sideline, and Harsin kind of looked like that mad scientist that had spent a lot of time drawing up this formula for this revolutionary type invention that would change people's lives, and he gave his formula paper to a friend of his, and his friend had lost it or something. He just looked frantic on the sidelines, and for a lot of you fans that are too young to realize what I'm about to say, it brought back memories. And oh golly, poor Francis, if you're a Notre Dame guy, it's like it was almost Jerry Faust-like on the side.
Oh God,
yes, Jimmy, you just nailed it. Absolutely agree with you.
I
but
mean,
he won a lot of games in high school, Jimmy.
Boy, there's no doubt about that. And but yeah, it just looked like they were just trying to find a way on the fly on the sidelines, just trying to come up with something that would work, and it was just, again, it was just such a stark contrast to the Penn State sideline. And
that was a brand damaging type of loss. It was, no one would be surprised. I think a little bit of the vibe in the air. You were there, Rob. I bought a new house, so I got locked down to, get ready for a move. But and I caught dodged a bullet there, not being able to make the Auburn game. But the difference between the offensive brain trust that understands sync and rhythm and calling a play with a purpose 2, 3, 4, even a series down the line of what you're setting up, as opposed to just calling plays randomly. I think I like this play. It worked in the Fiesta Bowl. Let's try that one. And it was just idiotic, and as evidenced by the fact that our two quarterbacks, Rob and Jimmy, had 20 carries, and our backs had 14 carries.
That's combined. 14 combined carries between Jarquez Hunter and Tank Bigsby. I mean, I tell you right now, the new trend is Auburn. This is never. It's never. I have tried to support. I'm pathologically loyal to Auburn. I love Auburn. I love the university. I love everything about it. I think of our boosters, our people that give everything they've got to support Auburn. This is me saying what I believe. I'm just one person. We have a platform that reaches a lot of people. So we're going to be responsible, but we're not going to hold back. You cannot.
No, you can't. Otherwise, it's a caricature of a show.
Yeah.
And if you want me to come on and be Aubie and say, well, we just need to stay behind old Coach Harsin, he's going to turn it around this year. Well, I'm not that guy. Go get you a Toomer's lemonade and get back to me on how that works.
Yeah.
Now, we can be classy. I think, we've had our blights on our good name in the way that coaching hire changes get made, like Jetgate, and which to me was more the victory of media making something more than like boosters don't reach out to potential coaching hires.
Yes.
They just don't get everybody on a jet and fly somewhere. But that was what it was. By the way, Petrino gave his former employer a scare, didn't he?
Yeah.
And so I think now it might be ungracious in the minds of some people to, in the days ahead, start behind the scenes musing about the proverbial short list. But I don't think it is, because I don't think you even give this guy a chance to, beat an LSU. I don't think we're good enough to do that in 2 weeks, but football's funny. Or, he's not going to, we're going to get the floor wiped by Georgia and Alabama, barring some, a torrential downpour and the game gets called at the second quarter and we kick 3 field goals. So
wishful thinking.
There's no scenario with the big picture that I see Harsin turning it around. And so now, to me, the book on Brian Harsin is, when he was at Boise and posted some good wins, that was a case that was more a victory of Boise because of their brand that previous coaches built and that program and that community built. They had just superior talent most of the time that helped Harsin look smarter and a better coach than perhaps he actually is, at least when you enter the brutal SEC.
Yeah, I want to do
this.
I
think this is the most critical week of the season, because this Missouri game is absolutely huge, because this is a team that you should beat. They're not big up front on both sides of the ball, and it gives you a chance to really have success with the strength of your offense, and that's obviously your running game. You've got to just pound, and tomorrow is just a huge practice day, because that's everybody's contact day.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of things done. You've really got to make the most of it, but at the same time, you got to be careful, because Missouri is kind of they're a type of team that you get them on the road, you can really put the wood to them, like Kansas State did a couple of weeks ago, 40-12. Now, the weather was really bad. And then this past week, though, they turned loose a freshman, this Luther Burden guy, 5-star guy, ran a punt back 80 yards for a touchdown, had a couple of other long touchdown plays, and another young
Jimmy,
wide receiver named Lovett.
Yeah, we got to take a break.
You've got to really be careful.
Yeah, I agree, Jimmy. And look, here's the thing. I agree with what you're saying about tomorrow's big because of the contact part of it. But at Auburn, you were judged by what you do in the big games: Bama, Georgia, LSU, Florida, Tennessee. Auburn never should take solace in beating crappy teams. We'll be right back.
No, but
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne here with you on the sidelines on this Monday with Jimmy Hodge, Doug Dean, and we'll be bringing in Tommy Kane over in Atlanta, talking about some ACC college football, SEC, big picture of college football. And then Mark Hamill will join us in the fourth segment. Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, getting ready for the Florida game. Doug,
Rob,
I'm with you.
Rob,
Got to do something quick.
Interject.
Yeah.
Jimmy's right. This is a big week.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're headed for realistically ahead. You always want to, for the long-term sake of your brand and the history, go win as many games, stay bowl eligible, win as many games as you can. But I'll tell you, this is a classic week. This coaching staff and team, senior leaders better be damn careful that Penn State doesn't beat us twice.
Absolutely agree with you. And that's where people, you know what it's going to be like all week long with people coming up and just the negativity. I'm not a negative person. In fact, I am pathologically loyal to my school, the brand and all that. But you've got to be able to be honest and look at things. Beating Missouri, if that has to happen, that there's no wiggle room there. But Frank Broyles told a friend of mine who coached on the staff at Arkansas a few years ago. He said one time, he said, if you've made the wrong hire and you know it and it's obvious, you got to get rid of him, no matter what the cost is, because it may cost you whatever dollars now, but in the long run, it'll cost you a whole lot more. And I just think the Christmas Eve hire, missing that December signing period, and just not connecting with the way we do things in the South. You've got to bring in an AD to Auburn who knows Auburn, that knows the South, and knows what Auburn is up against. Auburn is Poland in 1939 right now. What Georgia and Alabama are doing is unprecedented in the history of college football. And if Auburn doesn't stand their ground and fight and get an AD to come in there and make some changes and get a head coach and get all the boosters on the same page, nothing will change. This is the defining moment. And if you wait till the end of the season, the new trend is now you make changes in the 5th or 6th week of the year. You cannot afford to miss a whole signing period in December. February is a thing of the past. That's just table scraps falling from Longshank's table or Saban or Kirby, who they didn't want. You can't wait that long.
Rob, I'm going to be hitting the refresh. You listening, John Hart? The refresh button on the Auburn flight tracker to the great state of Utah.
Well, I'll just say this. We had John Hartwell on the show. What a class act. He's someone we had a chance to talk to. I'm sure there's some other ones out there, but I've never talked to someone where it is so obvious, someone that has a vision and loves a school and understands the makeup and what makes it tick. That's like Kirby going to Georgia. He fits Georgia like Sam Pittman fits Arkansas. It's just incredible. By the way, Sam Pittman is just, we need more Sam Pittmans in college football. The way he fired the shot over the bow last week at the press conference to the Arkansas fans, hey, we ain't going down there. He goes, we're going to treat him with respect. The way he hugged him after the game, Audrey said, it almost made her tear up. Look at the way he treated him. I'm not saying we want to be horrible to Browne Hearts. It's just, you got a product and a brand that the Wall Street Journal rates is worth $900 million. You got to protect it. You can't let it fall into the damn gutter.
It's not personal. I mean, people want to portray Auburn as making everything personal.
No, it's not.
I've been guilty of that here and there. It's business. God Almighty, this is Alan Green was not a good fit, but he's a great man. I really like Alan
Super
Green.
nice guy.
Gives an incredible speech at Vestavia in Birmingham Chamber of Commerce. I brought him in for that, and he blew us all away. But he's just a bad fit at Auburn at this moment. And we've had a one and done, if you ask me, Rob and Jimmy, a one and done experiment with the AD unilaterally hiring the head coach of his choice. I'm ready to go back to the money guys being more involved. That's not to say we should have hired Kevin Steele, but this next hire is so damn critical. Let's make sure we at least unify everybody, build consensus on the choice. And you're going to hear the names Kiffin. Sorry. I forgot your Yancey. I'm not saying Kiffin would be gettable or the best hire. You're going to hear from me. You're going to hear Jeff Grimes, brought in at 53 years old from Baylor with a great OC and DC, the elite guys. You hear a segment pushing Coach Primetime. I think that would be laughable at Auburn, but you would sure be able to go get recruits. So let the short list begin.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Doug, thanks so much for being on here with us. We're gonna switch gears and head over to Atlanta to Tommy Kane, but a lot of stuff's going to be happening, and I think your comments were you nailed it as always, eloquently with class. You knocked it out of the park. It's not personal. It's just we want to win.
No,
we want to win.
Absolutely. Y'all have a great week.
All right, you do too. All right, Jimmy, let's go over to Atlanta, talk with Tommy Kane, Wilmington, North Carolina native, NC State alum. You know the ACC, and they need you back on the ACC network. ACC road trip, man. The enthusiasm that comes through when you're on, positive nature. Hey, man, we know it. Like I say, with these coaches, it ain't personal. It's just we got to get the right fit. And here it is, ACC, Georgia Tech. That's a program that is really struggling. I mean, Ole Miss goes in there and gets a huge 42-0 win at halftime. I saw the same thing at Auburn, man. I mean, in the third quarter when the floodgates just burst open, they were emptying Jordan-Hare, and that's not a good look. You do not. That's a silent protest or a visual protest. If I'm a coach or a player and I see that, it makes me sick, and you got to fix it. Same thing with Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech. But let's look around the rest of the ACC, top to bottom, Tommy. I think they're fighting. Miami didn't get the win at A&M, but that game Friday night, Florida State at Louisville, I mean, that's kind of Bobby Bowden type football, had you glued to the TV sets. I love college football, and so let's talk ACC.
Yeah, good to be back on with you guys. First of all, you guys are a little feisty for a Monday morning around here. I got on earlier, listened to the whole Auburn talk, and I was ready to get my boxing gloves on. I was like, y'all are going at it.
Well, I was down there at the game Saturday, and then I spent the night in Tuscaloosa with some friends, and look at that, they're on top of the world. I mean, Saban's walking on water like Coach Bryant was. Listen, man, it's like your sibling, your bunkmate. You're on the bottom bunk and your little brother's on the top bunk or whatever. It's very close and personal. And then you look what Georgia's doing. I think Auburn fans are, they want to win too.
Yeah, of course you do. I mean, there's a good history there at Auburn, and everybody wants to win. And unfortunately for the coaching carousel, so to speak, in this world that we live in today, like if you don't produce right away, man, they don't give you. That's pretty short rope, and the same thing, like, for instance, at NC State, when Dave Doran first got there, everybody was like, get rid of him. He's not going to work. But they stuck with him, and to their credit. And now we're in a position where we're, top 12, top 15 ranked in the country. And so it's nice. But, it's as hard as a fan base to be that patient, especially, like you said, when your big brother right next door is rolling and fighting for a national championship every year. You want to be right there in that mix. And I totally get it, man. I was talking to some friends last night. I mean, being an NC State fan all my life, I mean, it's just like you always just kind of get a little bit disappointed no matter how good we're talking about it. We'll probably beat Connecticut, maybe even beat Clemson, and then we'll turn around and probably lose to like Wake Forest and a couple other schools, and our season will be kind of going down the toilet again. But we'll see what happens. But going back to Florida State, Rob, yeah, man, great game. Florida State's looking like, I mean, it's nice to see Florida State back on, playing that kind of football, like you said. Cunningham put up a heck of a game for Louisville. I mean, that kid's just special to watch him run around the field. I mean, I think he had almost 130 yards rushing as a quarterback and, almost 250, I think, throwing. So he was fun to watch that game, but it was a great shootout. And that's what you want to see, especially on a Friday night before they get you fired up for the Saturday games, right? Put that game on Friday night and get your blood pumping, right? So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. And the interest in college football, it's golly. I was out driving all over the South the last few days. Just so many people going to games, and in Tuscaloosa on the way back from Auburn, just the RVs, and all morning long, about every 5 or 10 minutes, I'd hear another private jet flying out of Tuscaloosa. I mean, and
that was all those recruits. That was all the recruits leaving after the game, is what that was.
That's what that was. Yeah, it was. But again, I'm loyal like you are to the school, and it's not personal, but and I hope Auburn wins the rest of the games this season. I want to be proven wrong on that, but
sure.
If a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. If a coach is going to be something special, they usually show up pretty early, and you've got talent, and everybody has players. But again, I go back, Tommy, to the regular season matchups, and we talk so much about matchups, but it's more important than anything. How do you match up on game day? NC State, Clemson, Wake Forest. You mentioned the Demon Deacs. God, with Sam Hartman back at quarterback, I mean, that game against Liberty, how exciting was that? And don't forget App State and Troy when game day was there. I mean, what's going on in Boone?
Dude, I'll tell you what. Boone has, in the last 3 weeks, Boone has made themselves so much money because all those kids are seeing that school, seeing they're showing the scenery around there, the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, and with the lifestyle up there, their applications are going to go through the roof. But good for them. I mean, they deserve it. App State's a fantastic school. What a great atmosphere up there. But the way they ended that game, I had to watch it like 3 times. I mean, it was executed perfectly with that guy waiting behind for the tip. He gets the tip, and it's like they're running a toss sweep. The guy that, if you notice, the thing that one of the guys that jumps up to tip the ball then turns around and starts running alongside with the guy and tries to throw a block to keep him in the end zone. I mean, it was awesome. And then to see the quarterback, the kid from Clemson, he's helping the kids get out. I don't know if you saw that. He literally goes over to the stands and helps the students come off over the wall to get onto the field. Like, he's picking up girls and bringing them over, and they're all high-fiving them. I mean, what a great atmosphere. And that's what college football is all about. And the App State ride right now, man, that coach is loving it. He might ain't going to be there much longer. Let's just be honest. He might be on your short list at Auburn. You never know.
Yeah. Again, I just, you look at, and Jimmy and Tommy, the campuses that they showed the week before when the Mountaineers went out there and won at College Station, just the students just flooding the streets there. And I remember, back in when I started to learn about Virginia Tech in the early and mid 80s with my brother-in-law having played football there, the burning of the couches and just going downtown in Blacksburg, and just absolute crazy environment and atmosphere. Not that I want anybody to get burned up, but I mean, they love to celebrate. You just see something in college. It's the emotions, the passion, that's what makes it so special. And I got to say, NC State, Clemson, that will be a big game. People if you haven't been to these ACC stadiums, they're not as big necessarily as the SEC stadiums, but look at what happens on Saturdays there. The Carter Finley Stadium in Raleigh is a really cool venue for college football, and they get into tailgating. They get into having a great time up there like they do in the SEC.
That's right. I mean, when I was doing my ACC road trip, that's one of the things we did at every school we went to. We got there, we were there before the tailgaters got there, but then we jumped right in with the tailgaters to see what it was all about and what they were cooking and how they were going about their business. And we did some road trips to SEC schools, been down to LSU and South Carolina and Georgia and all these other schools we've gone to. And I will tell you right now, I will put the tailgating scene of Clemson and NC State up against anybody in the SEC. I'll put the atmosphere of game day atmosphere at Clemson and Death Valley and Clemson up against anybody in the SEC. And NC State's catching up. They're getting there. People are excited about the program. I don't know if you saw the end of the game, but they've got these new LED lights in the stadium. So it was a night game. We win. The lights start flashing and they all turn bright red. So the whole stadium down on the field, everything is just bright red color, put in these new lights. People said it was awesome. It was so loud and hyped. But the ACC's always kind of gotten a little bit of a bad rap when it comes to like their atmosphere compared to the SEC. And hey, I get it. The SEC is successful year after year. They've just great atmospheres, no doubt about it. But the ACC is not far behind. I mean, it really isn't. And especially if you put a couple of the bigger schools up there, and then you go on the opposite extreme to like Wake Forest and Winston-Salem. Great place to watch a college football game, but it is the most family-friendly atmosphere you'll ever see in a college football game. Like, it is just like there's very little. There's tailgating, but it's not crazy. The stadium is very easy to get in and out of. The fans are good, but they're not rabid, crazy, drinking all the time, going crazy. Student section. It's just a good family atmosphere stadium, and they're doing great. So, hats off to them for sure.
Well, I'm with you. And you look, Jimmy and I and you, we've all traveled to a lot of stadiums. I think about, I've been to Grant Field, Bobby Dodd Stadium many, many times. Florida State down in Tallahassee. That was before they were in the ACC. But
Right.
these fans, these are the same people in the Southeast, that footprint of the U.S., and you give them something to believe in, the passion, the tailgating. I mean, you might have 50 or 80 or 100,000 inside the stadium. There's another 50,000 plus. There is a whole industry of the tailgate industry. It is to college football what IT in the Silicon Valley are to technology. Okay. And it is really big. And it's so easy for fans to just walk out of a stadium if things aren't going right and go back to the tailgate and get liquored up and just hang out, and eat. Oh my God. The food, we've got to be careful as a country with tailgating, or everybody's going to be riding around on a golf cart.
Thank goodness there's not that many games in the course of a year, right?
I mean, 52 weekends. Holy cow! We're going down back to the Auburn LSU game. We're bringing 10 slabs of ribs. We're bringing boudin. Frank Duffy with Bengal One's going to be doing jambalaya, gumbo. Might even make a pastalaya. Hey, if it ever ran, flew, swam, or crawled, it's going to be on the grill or in the pot. Jimmy Hodge, you got some questions I know for Tommy Kane over there in ACC Network. We're going to do this. I'm going to tell you what, we're about to take a break. I don't want to get started because I know Jimmy's got a bunch of questions for you. Tommy, real quick, before we do go to the break, what do you think's going to happen? You're there in Atlanta. We got about a minute before the break with Jeff Collins. This is year 4. Nothing's getting better. I mean, it's like waiting for the paint to dry. It's not going to dry.
Yeah, I was disappointed this weekend, guys. I'm not going to lie. I went to that Clemson Georgia Tech game in the beginning of the year, and I was like, whoa, Georgia Tech's actually looking pretty good in the first half. They played pretty well. But we didn't know what to expect from Clemson either at the time. And obviously Clemson's good, but not quite as good as we kind of thought they'd be. But Georgia Tech in their own field and getting shut out 42-0. I mean, that's just not good. And, he's in a tough situation. It's a tough school to recruit to sometimes because of the academic prowess that they have there at Georgia Tech. But hey, man, it's in the heart of the city. There's a lot of nightlife around it. There's a lot of things to do. There's not that far from, there's a lot of professional teams here. Obviously, you kind of get that atmosphere. There's the whole music scene, and now there's the movie scene here in Atlanta. It should be easier to recruit, but he's having a tough time.
Yeah, it is. And we're going to talk more about the ACC after we get back from this break. You're across the street from the varsity. At least you eat well. We'll talk about it after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4 City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Tommy Kane with us over in Atlanta, and Jimmy Hodge. Jimmy, you got some questions? Jump on back in here. Let's talk some ACC football to this point and from here on out.
Well, I've got a couple of observations before the question, but I did want to say that I really appreciate the rudeness that App State showed by going to A&M and not only taking the $1.5 million check, but also stealing the win. And then they pulled off the trifecta. They stole game day away from A&M because A&M was supposed to have game day against Miami until App State came in and ruined the party, and they took game day for themselves. I mean, that pretty good 12-hour stretch there for the Mountaineers, you know. But I wanted to move on to oh, by the way, too, before I ask you about Clemson, I have not had a chance to read Mark Bradley's column either yesterday or today summing up the Georgia Tech situation. I doubt it's very complimentary, but good grief. Rob mentioned they were struggling. I think that's the politest word in the English language I could use to describe their dilemma right now. But, man, oh, man, you're right. They look good against Tech for Clemson more than 3 quarters. And then, man, 2 weeks later, really ugly. But, you know, Clemson's got a really interesting schedule stretch coming up, you know, at Wake Forest this week. And then Wake Forest has to feel like they dodged a bullet against Liberty. So they're going to be playing with house money. Then you got State. And it's a really Florida State, interesting stretch of games. But how do you feel their offensive line is coming along as well as the quarterback play? Because in my mind, that's going to be critical for their success.
Yeah, you know it. It's a good point. And the stretch coming up is not going to be easy for them at all. And I got to be honest with you. My wife's a Clemson grad. So we watch Clemson, obviously, at the house a lot when we can. And went to the game, like I said, at the beginning of the year here at the Chick-fil-A kickoff. And it doesn't look – the Clemson offense doesn't look like the Clemson offense of old. Now, I mean, Shipley had a great game this weekend. But, again, against Louisiana Tech, you know, I think he had about almost 140 yards, 2 touchdowns for them running. But so it's nice to see they get the running game going. But DJ just doesn't look like he's I mean, how do I put it? He shows moments of wow, and then the rest of the time you're scratching your head going, is he really as good as they say he is or whatever? Because he just doesn't seem to run the offense correctly or very efficiently, I should say. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's a tough stretch. I mean, and they're Clemson, right? They're coming in, so they got a target on the back in the ACC. Everybody wants to beat them. Wake Forest is going to be gunning as hard as they can, and we're going to be gunning. We're going to. My wife and I bought tickets to that. We're going to hopefully still be married after that weekend, but we'll see how it goes. But you know, it's interesting. I don't think they're the number 5 team in the country. I will just tell you that right now, point blank. I do not think they are. Could they eventually end up number 5 in the country if they, you know, start playing better? Sure, they got the talent to do it. But right now, the way they're playing, I would say they're maybe the 12th or 15th best team in the country. That's just my personal opinion. So it'll be interesting.
Well, you talk about the quarterback situation with DJ. Either you got it or you don't, and you can do it for a little bit. Look at Penn State's quarterback. Look at Bryce Young. I mean, these guys just get it done when nobody thinks that they have a chance. I don't see that out of DJ. And the offensive line for Clemson they're just not elite. And they're not the only school that struggles, but to be ranked number 5, when A&M was ranked number 6, I was like, seriously? I mean, that's why we shouldn't have rankings till about 5 or 6 weeks into the season.
That'll never happen. They got rankings right now for next year.
Oh, I know. But and it's great for fan interest, and we love to talk about it. If anything, we love to pick it apart.
Right. And can I got to, just to change gears just quickly here, I got to be remiss if I didn't talk about, did you guys see what Louisiana Tech players did for Clemson? You know, Clemson had the defensive lineman that lost his daughter, his sister this week to cancer. And she was, so he didn't play. Brian Breesy, I believe is his name. Louisiana Tech, I don't know if you guys saw this, but every single player on that team wrote a handwritten letter to Breesy, and they left it for him in the locker room after the game. Every single player on that team, handwritten letter, you know, saying they were sorry about the passing of his sister.
I did not see that, but Man, that just gives you chills.
I mean, that's class 100% through. And then the Louisiana Tech coach, I don't know if you saw that, he was wearing because the Clemson had T-shirts for all their, just I think her name was Ella Strong or something like that. He was wearing a T-shirt supporting her during the game. The Louisiana Tech coach. I mean, class act. I have so much more respect for that university and the way they handled that situation and what they did. But a handwritten letter, come on, in today's day and age, like what does that happen? And they gave him a whole box. At the end of the game was a whole box from every single player, handwritten letters with their apologies and their sentiments for the passing of his sister. Classic.
Yeah, it really is. And we get caught up in. And I mean, one of the things we try to do on the show is find those moments like that. And that is so powerful. All the Louisiana Tech players writing a handwritten note. I mean, I hope other schools around the country and fans take note of that. Here we are talking about getting rid of coaches and all, but I mean, that's a different deal. They're getting, Brian Harsin loses his job at Auburn. He leaves with $15 million plus what he's made so far in his salary. You lose somebody, that's forever.
Right.
And that is again, find excuses to win and find the good stories. And I'm glad. It's awful what happened, but people, you need to hear that. There's just way too much talk about all this negative stuff, and that puts things in perspective and knocks me off my sports pivot.
That's right. That's right. And that's look, we all love to talk sports and get fired up and get angry about the coaches or the play calling or doing whatever, or how the teams are performing and whatnot and things at the end of the day. But, it's nice to occasionally hear these kind of stories to step back and say, okay, it's just a game. Like, no, there's nobody's, it's just a game. It's a win-loss game. You're sure you're passionate about it, but keep it in perspective. This young man is losing his sister, who was vibrant as could be. And the other story I heard about it too is that, I don't know if you guys know this, but he brought her to practice. I guess it was about a week ago when she was still able to walk and do whatever. And the whole team rallied around her and they asked her what she wanted to say. And she just said she wanted to pray with everybody. And now she got the whole team and they all sat there and said a prayer. And, then they lost her 5 days later. But those are the kind of stories that make you get chill bumps and almost tear up, because that's what life is really. That's the important stuff, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing.
Georgia's been great about that stuff. You guys will remember when Blake Anderson was coaching at Arkansas State and his wife was fighting what turned out to be a losing battle against cancer. And when they played in Athens, Georgia had a special ceremony for him and a fundraising effort in which it was just made public throughout the whole stadium, to help fund, the cost of, the medical procedures and all of that. And then they had another time, and I know Tommy being in Atlanta remembers it, when they played Southern University of Baton Rouge and the Southern player was paralyzed, I think, on a kickoff. And they built a home for him and they funded all of his medical treatments, and they made sure he got back numerous times back and forth to Athens. And eventually, I think he may even be able to walk now. But it is so great to see those gestures from even, programs that you just wouldn't expect to see it from. And then the Purdue case where they had the student that was about a week or two from death. And I think 2017 on Saturday night, they played Ohio State in West Lafayette and they blew him out. And he was in the locker room after the game and in a special suite and all that. So that's what makes college football so great, because it really is a game, and the human element of this and the emotional part of it is just priceless.
It really is, Jimmy and Tommy, both of y'all, what you just said. And then the fans, we're all, golly, I've got, Mallory's an Alabama grad, and then Wilson, Hallie, Max are all Auburn. So I got, and my wife, I remarried, is a Vol for life, but I still let her stay in the house. It's just the way it is. Tommy, I cannot, and thank you for bringing that to our attention, because, we have a lot of people that listen and we get intense on this show, but again, this is the most important thing, is how we treat other people and care for other people. So thank you for saying that. And we're about out of time. for this segment, but I want to get you back on. I think we need to start getting you on Saturdays to be part of the college football roundtable. If you're up for it, we're going to start putting GoPro cameras on people like Frank Duffy, who was walking around Baton Rouge this past Saturday, looking in people's gumbo pots and looking at what's going on. As you know, in Louisiana, there are 3 things that are sacred: God, family, and the LSU Tigers, of course, and a man's gumbo paddle.
Man, I tell you what, we did a road trip from Louisiana, from Death Valley down there one time. It was a Saturday afternoon game, so it wasn't even a night game. And we hung out with the Tiger and did a story on him and all that stuff, which is amazing down there. But the tailgating down there was like from a different era, like different world. I mean, there was alligators on spits that they were spinning around. They're cooking, every time we stopped by somewhere, they're like, "Come on, boy, come get some alligator tail." And I've eaten a lot of food at tailgates and stuff like that, but I eat some of the most unique foods I've ever eaten down at LSU. I'll tell you that.
Tommy, alligator is
rest
good.
assured that alligator meat is fresh. They're not kidding. And they don't step on their jambalaya either.
No, Tommy, Jimmy, and I remember as a kid, I was 9 or 10. First time I went to New Orleans on the way back from Destin, parents took me over there, went down Bourbon Street at night, and I saw all these legs flashing with neon lights, and I was like, "What's that?" And my dad said, "Boy, you'll learn soon enough." And so it was wild. And we went to the French market, and it literally, guys, anything that did ever run, fly, swim, or crawl was out there. And I remember having fried alligator bites may have been at Acme Oyster Bar or Felix's or something like that. But and then the beignets and all. But you know what? Alligator, you just got to tenderize it to break down the viscosity of the meat. I'm not a chef and I don't do a food show, but Chef Roger is my friend and he's taught me that. And it's actually pretty good. The tail is. And you know what they do? Tommy, turducken. You take a turkey and you stuff a duck in it and a chicken all there together with crawfish and shrimp etouffee. And you just put it in the oven and let it cook for a while. And then you slice it up and it marbles out. And it is so good. You know, the Atchafalaya Basin down there, that's what they call the pantry, the Cajun cooking. That's where it comes from. And then the other thing is God was smart and kind. He gave the Cajuns down there hot sauce, Avery Island, where they make Tabasco sauce, because you can eat anything with enough hot sauce on it.
Well, we've gone off the rails here, haven't we?
Well, we have. It's Monday. You're talking to an ADD guy with OCD. So what were we talking about? Tommy, we got a few more minutes because Mark Ham, Superman, just got called in on a call. He's going to try to call us. But I want to say this along these lines. You look at the ACC, the SEC. I just think that the memo has been sent. I think we've rattled a lot of cages, and Jimmy and I talk about this all year long. Nobody wants to be left behind. And the ACC has 14 members, and there's a lot of talk about who's going to poach who. I think what happened in 2020 when the virus forced small crowds, although the Florida A&M game, there were 50,000 people at that game. They were students, just students. I mean, I don't blame Mullen for being kind of mad, but I think what happened was we all learned, we have our rivalries and our disagreements and all, but man, we missed each other. And now when I was at Auburn this past weekend, good gosh, 90,000 inside. I bet there were 60,000 outside tailgating. It was crazy. And Penn State, man, they travel well. Good gosh, they travel well. And I had a great time talking to their fans. And I went up to one of them and I said, all right, you beard up enough to say it. Say Ewans. They love to say Ewans. And then they said, well, if you're from New Jersey, close to New Jersey, you say Utes guys or, Utes or whatever. But man, they traveled and they were acting like it was a big deal to beat Auburn. I mean, they were taking pictures and everywhere. And I'm sitting there going, man, that's kind of like beating up on a man and laying in bed who can't get up the way that team looked today. But I mean, that shows you, I love Auburn. I'm proud of Auburn, but man, that team, they got to play better. But God, when fans, these intersectional games is what I'm saying, Tommy, we need more of them.
Yeah. Yeah. A good buddy of mine is a graduate of Penn State, went to the game, and he put up on the social media right afterwards. He said that Auburn fans were incredibly accommodating, super nice to them. Obviously they're in enemy territory, but he said it was a great atmosphere to be at college football, and they were all classy fans, and good on them. Because Penn State is still Penn State. They went through all what they went through with the Joe Paterno era or whatever. But that white uniform, by the way, which I think is probably the coolest uniform in all college sports. That's just me. But I think it's iconic. You see that, right away who they are. Like, there's no
pajamas. The power of the pajamas.
Hey, whatever you want to call it, when Penn State's in the building, right? And and it's good to see them rolling again and doing well, because golly, it couldn't get any worse for that school for a while there. But they went into Auburn and did what they had to do. They're a good team. They got that freshman running back is spectacular. Man, he was just like he was going into a fifth, sixth gear, and nobody else could even come close to him. But, but like you said earlier, that would have been a great game for Auburn to come in and really play well and walk out of there with a win, and it would put you right back on the map. But we'll see how the season shakes out for them. Could be tough.
Yeah. And it's just, again, it's what makes college football so special is the fan base is traveling, and whatever the economy is doing, or positive, negative, whatever, those Penn State fans found their way down there. And that, again, made it fun. I talked to a lot of them, and just congratulations, man. You took us out to the woodshed and just beat us senseless. And that, you expect to win at Auburn every game. Yeah. If your goal is not to win the game, there's something seriously wrong with you, but got a lot of college football to do. So let's do this, Tommy. Let's get you back on the round table Saturday morning at 9 a.m. And I'll talk to you during the week, but we go 9 to 11 on Saturdays, your time. And if you're going to be at a game, get your phone, go around, be mobile, stick your head into some tailgates, because I guarantee you at NC State, they cook some stuff. They may cook, at Clemson, they may cook low country stew or whatever, but we want to see it. It's been great stuff with you as always. Tommy Kane over in Atlanta talking ACC. We're going to take a quick break, more sidelines. Hopefully Mark Ham, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, will join us after this. But Tommy, thanks for bringing the human side, what's most important to college football. God love those Louisiana Tech players. We'll be right back.
Good,
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with Jimmy Hodge, and great stuff there with Tommy Kane over in Atlanta talking ACC, and also that story with what the Louisiana Tech players did for the Clemson football player who lost his sister to cancer this past week. That is what it's all about. You're dealing with people, and harsh as we may be about coaches or whatever, different story. You're dealing with what is most important. So hate that it happened, but there are a lot of good people in this world, and maybe Luke Bryan is right. Most people are good. Sometimes they wear different jerseys, but they're still good. Hey, Jimmy, looking now at what's going on in college football, you look at Arkansas. They had to play a full 60 to get that win against Missouri State, and I really like the way Sam Pittman handled it. We're not going to be classless. Arkansas fans are good people. I know a ton of them. Bobby Petrino, he can still coach. He's an outstanding offensive mind. Just didn't have enough talent to beat Arkansas. But what does that tell you about Arkansas, that they had to go a full 60 against Missouri State? Should that concern you? Did you see anything that might be a problem this week when they play Texas A&M down at Jerry's World?
Yeah, Jalen Catalon's out for the season.
We know
That's
that. Yeah,
devastating loss.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they are a completely different team. I mean, Missouri State jumped out on them early, and we saw what happened last year when they lost Catalon for the second half of the season. I mean, it's just something you can't recover from, and that makes my outlook on Arkansas totally different than it was 2 weeks ago, because he's just such a dominating player, and again, you just try to fill that position as efficiently as you can, but you don't replace a player like that. And that's just a huge loss. And I think as far as Arkansas fans are concerned, you cannot overlook how important the Bobby Petrino era at Arkansas was, because he showed the college football world that Arkansas can compete at the elite level of college football. And their offenses were great to watch. And, anytime you play them, you were going to have their hands full, because he is an outstanding offensive coach. But again, I think that was probably what was in Sam Pittman's mind too, because, you got to be thinking, man, where would we be if they wouldn't have picked Petrino to come here for that, whatever it was, 6-year period. I mean, he totally changed the perception of that program, and Arkansas fans should never forget that. And again, Pittman just reinforced that reality that if you get the right guy, Arkansas can compete with anybody, and that's where they're at right now. But with that being said, just like every other team, and I've said it repeatedly, the last couple of months, you have no way to predict injuries, to what players they will affect, the extent of the injuries, how long they're going to be out. And, with a 15-game schedule, if you make the national championship game, man, that's a lot of games to try to go injury-free, and you're just not going to do it. You might get lucky as far as being able to avoid injuries to your absolutely elite players, your top 4 or 5 players, but it's inevitably going to affect every team. You just hope that it just doesn't hit too many players, and that you've got somebody at that position that can provide good depth. And that's why everybody's trying to sign as many good players at every position as possible, because of the injury situation, because it's reality.
Yeah. Well, and look, think about this. 1959, 1989, Arkansas finished in the top 10 12 times in that 30-year period, multiple times in the top 15, top 20. They won, I think, 11 conference championships in that time. Since they came to the SEC, they finished in the top 10, I think, one time. The years Bobby Petrino was there were scary. And that's why when you go back and you look at what he did, okay, one mistake off the field, okay, he owned up to it. He's apologized, move on. But yeah, you're right. He did. And to this day, Arkansas, if they do it right, and Sam Pittman, they did it right Saturday. They handled it right. They were good about it. That shows recruits what the Razorbacks are capable of. All right, let's switch gears too. LSU down at Mississippi State. Golly, I thought Mississippi State could get the win. It looked good early. LSU comes back roaring in the fourth quarter, 31-16. Let's just do about a minute on that, and then I want to look ahead, look at a few more games. But Brian Kelly just looks very comfortable being LSU's coach.
Well, when I talked to Frank, I'm going to tell him that I didn't realize that when Leach and his state team came to Baton Rouge that they were going to be bearing gifts. I mean, a missed extra point, a lost fumble at their own 5-yard line. I mean, they just basically hand delivered the game, to LSU. I actually thought State was the better team throughout, but after that fumble punt at the 5-yard line, it just totally reversed the momentum of the game, and LSU fed off of it. And the crowd at Tiger Stadium was great. And also the last quarter, I guess, was played after sundown. So that really got the crowd stoked even more. And again, the LSU players really fed off of it. And Brian Kelly, I tell you what, he is the perfect coach for LSU, because if somebody makes a mistake, you're just not going to be able to run off the field, kind of slide back to the bench. Kelly's going to let you know about it. And LSU is in a state of time right now where they need a coach like that. That's going to let you know that when you make a mistake, especially one that should not be made, you're going to be made aware of it. And I think that the players are responding to that.
Yeah, and look, 264 wins. Nick Saban, 269. Just put that in perspective, folks. If you don't think Brian Kelly belongs at LSU because his accent wasn't right, you're a fool. This guy can coach. He's won everywhere he's ever been. And he made the smartest career move he could possibly make. He did everything he could do at Notre Dame, and he's at LSU where he'll get through that ceiling. That's how it'll be. All right, I want to talk about another one. I'm seeing SEC Shorts is coming out now with a pretty funny one. Have y'all seen it? Penn State charged with murder. The Auburn game. Wow. I'll have to watch that one after. It just came through on my phone. I want to look at Georgia, South Carolina. There's really nothing much to look at. 48-0. I thought it'd be something like 38-13 Georgia. Just Georgia looks to me, and we're going to get Jordan Hill from 24/7 Sports on with us in the next day or so, who covers Georgia really, really well. He covers them. He's the eyes to Georgia. That wasn't even close. Georgia looks to this point to be better than last year. Stetson Bennett looks better. Now, here's the question. Who have they played? They've played Oregon. They played Samford. Okay. They played at South Carolina in the 11 o'clock game, 12 o'clock Eastern. What are you reading in on Georgia, Jimmy? Let's be quick because I got a bunch more to ask you to this point, because I'm with Tony Barnhart right now. I got them number one for what that's worth.
Well, they should be. I mean, they've looked better than anybody the first 3 weeks, but at the same time, South Carolina was missing a bunch of key defensive players, and Georgia is good enough of a team just to take full advantage of that. And yeah, Bennett has looked great in the first 3 games, and they got that, tight end duo of Bowers and Washington, and just their entire roster is just really playing with a lot of confidence. But yeah, I pump the brakes right now. It's only week 3, and again, the injury situation for every team in college football is going to pop up. And that's where depth is going to be really important, but you just never know at which positions it's going to strike. But I really think that for an SEC team, Georgia's schedule is about as friendly as you can get. And I just think, they're going to be a 2-touchdown favorite in every regular season game.
Yeah.
And, and it's obvious Alabama has a lot of things to fix, but they don't have to be as good as Georgia is right now. They just have to be as good as Georgia is if they both make it to the SEC championship game, and maybe another repeat meeting. You never know for the Natty.
Okay. Well, I'm with you right there. Looking at that game, Georgia just is absolutely dominant. They're the absolute dominant team in college football to this point. And I just say, look at the quarterback look at the quarterback situation. And I look at the quarterback situation for, golly, for Georgia. And they seem to me like with Stetson Bennett right now, 15 players drafted, 5 defensive players drafted in the first round. But when you're recruiting like Georgia is, and Alabama and Ohio State, I'm not going to be a Pollyanna and say you just plug in another person, but it is a process that Kirby Smart has at Georgia, like they do at Alabama. I'm not saying they're Alabama. Nick Saban can claim 6 national championships at Alabama and 1 at LSU for 7, which is more than anybody in college football history. But Jimmy,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, he coached under Saban for 10 years. I mean, that's the blueprint he's using,
exactly.
The process.
How can you? I'm just not trying to steal from it, but it's a little bit different. One thing,
but it's not illegal.
No, it's not. But here's the difference.
Use the same principles and the same methods, and a lot of people are doing it.
Yeah, and here's what is the number. Put the numbers together. In the state of Alabama, you've got almost 150 Division I players that'll sign scholarships this year. In Georgia, it's around 250. So between just those 2 states, that's about 400, give or take a player or 2. 400. And then they're getting players like Darnell Washington out of Las Vegas, Keely Ringo from out in Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona, Brock Bowers from California, Bryce Young from California at Alabama. A couple of years ago, Najee Harris out of Antioch up in the Bay Area. It works. And so now another one I want to talk about real quick. A&M hosted Miami. Again, a lot of people, they want so badly to say the U is back. They're not. And we said that going into the game. We don't know how good they are. They played, I think, Bethune-Cookman and Southern Miss. They go on the road. They catch a Texas A&M team that for the last week had been just roasted by the media, by their fans, and the players themselves are probably having a few, doubts. They get the win 17-9. What is the takeaway, Jimmy? Got about 40 seconds. We're trying to be quick. What's the takeaway on A&M's win? Besides, the win's great.
Well, Miami was playing without their top a wide receiver. I mean, he's their star, Xavier Restrepo, and that was just a crucial. And the other receivers they had were not good. They dropped a bunch of passes, and also that offensive line, really struggled last week against Southern Miss in the first half. They got better as the game wore on, but they didn't do a good job against that A&M front. So again, it just shows you need to have all your players when you're playing a road team or playing a road game at A&M that has a lot of young talent, even though it might not be experienced. But if they can't get that offensive line fixed, Miami's going to have trouble with that passing game, even though Van Dyke's a really good quarterback.
Yeah, and here's some comments by Levon Helm in Turkey Scratch, Arkansas. Interesting. The ghost of Levon Helm, it says, listening. He says, the Pirate is so predictable. Their scheme only works when they have better speed, in all caps, not against LSU. Good points. Hard to argue that one. And Mike Leach Zach Arnett's a good defensive coordinator. They have players, but again, the running game, they looked like it was going to be there early. There's a long way to go. But I'm going to tell you that the takeaway from like all these games, and you're talking about A&M, their win over Miami. What I see with A&M, Max Johnson, Haynes King, how obvious is it who the better quarterback is, Jimmy?
Well, he didn't turn the ball over, and that's all they needed Saturday night to win this game.
Yeah.
And if he goes back to throw, his numbers weren't great at all, but of course it's his first start in a new system, a new coaching staff. But if somebody's not open, he's just going to throw the ball away.
Yeah.
Because you've got very talented players. You just can't afford to put them into a difficult situation by turning the ball over and allowing the opponents to only maybe navigate half the field to score a touchdown. So that makes a big difference. And again, he's just going to be a very stabilizing presence for this A&M team, and he's just exactly who he's exactly who they need.
Yeah,
you know,
I totally agree.
to just steady the ship.
Yeah, and his brother's on the team. Of course, his brother could have transferred to LSU, but hey, that's life. And we got about a minute to go. I'll say that A&M now, with stability, what I think is stability at quarterback, will be a better team. And this matchup, we're going to get more into it tomorrow, Saturday, Arkansas and A&M. That's one of the big ones of this coming weekend, as is Tennessee, Florida. These are the games that get everybody really excited. They're getting better every week. But I still wonder, Zach Calzada, he must have an injury that we don't know about. That's why he's not on the field. But, man, if he didn't think he could beat out Haynes King, or maybe he was worried more about Max Johnson. I worry about a guy that runs from competition. I hope that's not what it was. But I hope he can get on the field for Auburn. That it takes quarterback is the most important position in all of college football. Look, we have run out of time. Great show. Great Q&A here at the end with Jimmy. We'll be back tomorrow. Another great show lined up. A lot of great guests talking college football. Go out and help with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Everybody listening on Kicks 96.3, thank you. Lake Martin, we'll see you tomorrow.